All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Good evening to you all. Welcome to the show. Today is Wednesday, May 19th, 2021, and I am your host, Permission to Exist. And we are going to have ourselves a very interesting conversation this evening. Oh man, where do I even start? So, first and foremost, the mods are probably going to be pretty busy tonight. But to my moderators, my request would be let it expose itself first. Don't go chopping heads right away. Wait a little bit. Let a little bit get exposed so the world can see and understand for themselves. And then you can start taking heads, maybe after like 30 minutes to an hour or so. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to exercise that level of restraint, but I do request that because people need to see. They need to see it. It's already starting. So, welcome everybody to the show. So, this show is a follow up to a video that I did quite a few years ago. I think that video was done like a year or two ago. And that video was called A Warning to Women Everywhere. And boy, did it trigger quite the response out of people. It really did. And the whole purpose of that video was simply to do exactly what the video suggests, which is warn women everywhere that there are certain men in our population who are very dangerous, who are becoming more dangerous by the day, who are being indoctrinated and brainwashed to be dangerous. And the end results of that are playing out all over the place. So we're seeing it everywhere. And this show, in fact, was not inspired, because inspired sounds positive, like it has a positive connotation. It was, I guess, born out of three recent incidents that we're going to get into. Okay. So this show is probably going to be pretty long. And for those of you who like long shows, that'll be a good thing. But I estimate we might be here about 2 hours because first we are going to um, look at a couple of articles, and then we are going to have the actual discussion, okay? Now, the odds and likelihood of this video getting hit are extremely high, and that's fine. We have backups for that. So in the event this video does not meet baby algo standards, I will be dubbing this into podcast form and uploading it to my podcast. Do go check that out, please. It's called PTE Podcasts. And what it is the quote unquote clean version of my live streams. Clean, not meaning I don't curse or anything. Clean simply meaning no glitches, no robot voice, weird technical errors, and things of that nature will all be edited out. Okay. So that is the purpose of that podcast. And apparently people really like podcasts. Like they really like them. I still, I still don't quite get it, but I think I'm starting to get it. I think I'm actually starting to understand why people like podcasts so much. I guess they're a little bit more mobile than YouTube, but when I think of YouTube, I think of YouTube as quite mobile. So anyway, welcome everybody to the show. Why don't we go ahead and jump right into the content and get started, okay? So let me get my screen pulled up here. Now, and actually before we do that, let me just do just a chat in. We're just going to do a little chat in and then we'll get started, okay? So I often forget that this issue needs to be brought up, and it needs to be brought up often. With everything else that's going on, it's easy to assume that things are well between men and women right now, and they aren't, and they haven't been for a while. Obviously, I'm not talking about everybody, and I'll give that disclaimer a couple of times because that's the first thing people like to come through and say, not all, not all, not all. Well, obviously not all, but I'm getting ready to share with you 3 different stories of domestic violence against women, 2 of which were fatal, one of which was unsuccessful. Okay. So do be forewarned in that respect. And I guess that would be a great opportunity for me to go ahead and throw this screen up here. So we are going to discuss two stories. The first one is just absolutely horrific. Lots of people died in this one. I think there was 3 total who passed away in the first story. The second story, just the woman, the wife, the estranged, the soon to be ex-wife, was the victim in that one. And then in the third story, the estranged wife was the target. Okay. So I do want you guys to know that. I don't want you to be blindsided by really graphic, violent content. And a lot of you have actually already heard of some of these stories that we're going to cover. So it may not be the first time that you're hearing these, but I do want you to be forewarned about that. Okay. In the event you're having like a good day, I hate it when people ruin my good day with really bad news. Okay. But this is reality though. And much how we talk about, we don't like working for companies that require positive attitude all the time. We can't pretend that these things aren't happening. We cannot pretend that it's not real. We can't sit here and constantly be like, well, there's bad in every group. There's bad women and there's bad men. And yes, there are bad women. And we've talked about them many times on this channel, have we not? We've covered the issue and the topic of bad women on many different occasions. But we have to talk about this because it is just coming out and showing itself over and over and over again. And it doesn't seem to be improving. Okay. So there's that. And I just need to remind myself that this is a PSA that I need to make regularly, not once a year, probably once a quarter. I need to start making this public service announcement. If for no one else, for the younger women who are just now coming into the dating world, they're getting ready. I would estimate this is like your age 17 to 21, getting ready to be new to all of this. They're the ones who need to hear this the most. And yes, there are some older women that need to hear it too, because a lot of older women are still deceived as well. So they need to hear it also. Okay. So there's that. So let's go ahead and get into the actual content. They say that the most dangerous time for a woman in a domestic situation that has turned dangerous or violent is when she tries to leave. Okay. And the common denominator in all 3 of the stories that I'm getting ready to share with you is that all 3 of these women had attempted to leave their husbands. They had either already filed for divorce, had filed for a separation, or some sort of protective order against their husband or ex-husband or estranged husband. Okay. So that is the common denominator. And all 3 of these stories are incredibly recent. It's almost back to back. The first one is in March, I think is when, no, the first one's April. The second one was May. And the third one was just the other day. It might've been yesterday, actually. So it's back to back to back. And so I said, okay, I need to come out and I need to speak on this subject again, even though it generally gets me torched by the types of men that we're talking about. And I don't care about being torched by them. Just understand that they take a lot of energy. They really are an energy suck and an energy drain. Lots of blocking, lots of deleting, lots of reporting. It's a lot. So I try not to attract them over here very often. But it's getting to the point where I just don't care. The world needs to see you, and the world needs to see who you really are and how you behave. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the first story. Some of you heard about this story. This was the ex-police officer, well, ex-detective, who killed his wife, his daughter, and her boyfriend. Oh, but it gets worse. So again, just to be reminded, if you're just joining, we are going to be getting into some graphic stories this evening. I apologize for that, but we can't escape the reality of this. And I feel compelled and commanded to speak on this topic. All right. So do be warned. All right. It says, on the run, ex-detective is arrested after shooting his wife, daughter, and her boyfriend. The wife said she feared he'd murder them after he was fired and jailed for, I'll just have to say being inappropriate because that'll get me hit on YouTube. Jailed for being inappropriate with the teen family member last year. Stephen Broderick was arrested on Monday morning. This article was published April 19th. Wow, so approximately a month ago. Stephen Broderick was arrested on Monday morning, walking around US 290, 14 miles from the shooting. He is believed to have killed his wife, Amanda, daughter, Alyssa, and Alyssa's boyfriend, Willie, on that Sunday. Last June, Broderick was arrested for being inappropriate with a 16-year-old family member. Police never named the child victim, but said the girl's mother reported the crime. And I believe allegedly, if I'm not mistaken, it was her, the daughter, the one he killed. Yeah, real scumbag. He was bonded on $50,000 and told to stay 200 feet away from his daughter, Alyssa, afterward. In family court, Amanda said she feared he would seek revenge on her and the kids because the allegation had been made public. Amanda fought his release, saying he was SWAT trained and, quote, knew how to hurt someone. She feared he'd come after them for reporting the assault to the police and ruining his career. A judge, however, agreed to remove his ankle monitor in November because he had behaved well until then. Haven't we been talking about this on this channel already? This whole, you have to believe in the boogeyman. The boogeyman can fool even the judge. And even the judge can be tricked by good behavior, by a positive attitude. Do you see how dangerous this whole positive attitude thing is? He was in the military too. Now, this is an aside, and this has absolutely nothing to do with the show directly. But when I first saw this picture of this man, I thought he had a t-shirt on underneath his jail jumpsuit. That is a tattoo. Ladies, any man who puts a starry night on his chest is not a man that you should be dating. First of all, it looks really gross just from a tactile observation, just from a visual, like it makes my flesh crawl because I thought it was a t-shirt and it's not, it's a tattoo. And it looks disgusting. I can only imagine what the rest looks like. And I'm not saying tattoos are disgusting. I'm saying any man who puts a starry night on his décolletage is a man that you need not be dating. That's what I'm saying to you. That's what I'm saying. Of all the tattoos in the world, he chose a starry night. What was it? Who is it? Van Gogh? The Scream? Anyway, let's move on. We just kind of read the summary. This is him being arrested, walking down the street. They arrested him without incident. He had a loaded gun on him. Okay. So my intention is not to sit here and comb through the articles because it's not the article itself. It's the incident. And the fact that this woman, here's the young lady that was killed by her father and her boyfriend, who I'm assuming was just there. Oh, now this is weird because we were just talking about Mean Green regarding plants and he has it on his jersey. That's weird. That's a very strange synchronicity. But anyway, these are the two young people who unfortunately lost their lives behind this psychopath right here. Because he was angry, number one, that he got told on regarding what he was doing to that girl. Number two, he lost his whole career behind it. Number three, his wife then filed for divorce. So this was his solution to it all. Okay. So, and I guarantee if they were to pull his social media and comb like down into the archives that aren't really like available to anyone but like super back end tech people and hackers, if you were to comb through his archives, I guarantee you would find all of the mindsets present and available regarding men and women and how much they hate us right now. You know what I mean? And I guarantee you he had a position okay, regarding women and sex and all of that. And those positions are kind of the point that I was making in my first video, a warning to women everywhere. It's the mindset. It's not the maleness, it's the mindset. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. It's the mindset that so many of them carry. Okay. So he's going to go to jail for the rest of his life. But how unfortunate for not only the wife, here's a picture of the wife, the daughter, and his son, who he did not hurt. But apparently he was there that day. So remember when I told you guys they always want themselves a little legacy? I don't know if he was her biological father. I don't think so. I'd have to double check, but I'm not sure. But apparently, this is his biological son who remained unharmed. They always want a legacy. That's part of it. Of course, he's not going to hurt his legacy. He's not going to harm his legacy, right? Because that's how sick they are. Okay. And here's mother and daughter. So very tragic. And what makes this even more tragic is she knew she was in danger. She knew that he could and would hurt them. She went to the authorities for help and found no help. You see what I mean? Maybe I should just read the article. Let me see. We'll just read this part right here. It says, in family court, Amanda said she feared he would seek revenge on her and the kids because the allegation had been made public. He was released from custody 16 days after his arrest. After posting $50,000 bond, he was told not to go within 200 feet of his daughter, Alyssa. Amanda pleaded with the courts to grant her a protective order against him. Quote, I'm afraid he will try to hurt me or my children because these allegations have come out and he may lose his career. Oh, here it is right here. Stephen has prior military experience and is SWAT trained. If he wanted to hurt someone, he would know how. State District Judge Karen Sage, so a female judge, agreed to remove the monitor despite Amanda's pleas, claiming it was a, quote, pretty common thing to do. The Travis County District Attorney's Office filed a motion to revoke that bond on Sunday after he'd already killed his wife, daughter, and his daughter's boyfriend. In a statement confirming Alyssa and Willie's death, the Elgin School District said, we are heartbroken by the news of this senseless tragedy, and we extend our deepest condolences to the families of Willie Simmons III and Alyssa Broderick, okay? And chances are he killed the boyfriend because he was jealous. So you have to understand how very, very unwell the types of men who do this type of stuff are. And I think it's important for me to go ahead and make a disclaimer and say, obviously, all men are not like this. All men are not dangerous. If they were, we would be at war all the time, 24/7, every corner of the world, okay? The corners of the world where there are a lot of men like this, there is a lot of war all the time. All the time. They're always at war, constantly. And war doesn't always necessarily mean, I don't think I can say that word. Pum, 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 pshee, it doesn't always mean that. But where there are lots of men with this similar mindset, you do find constant war. Yes, you do. So what I'm saying is, if every man in the world were like this, it would be 24/7 war all the time, everywhere you go. Okay. My goal is not to teach you to fear men. My goal is to teach you, ladies, that you are the hunted. And there's really not much that you can do about that other than understand that you are the hunted. You can't sit in the corner and cry about being the bunny rabbit. You just have to understand that you are, and that many different animals see you as prey. And you have to move accordingly, and you have to move as such, okay? Culturally, and a lot of women are guilty of perpetuating this, a lot of women don't really tell the truth about their experiences, in particular with their husbands or men that they've dated and been in relationships with, and they tend to not tell that truth to younger women. They don't tell them the truth. The things they usually say to the younger women are, "Oh, it's the most beautiful thing you'll ever experience, and every woman needs a man, girl, and you're not getting any younger," and on and on and on, right? So there's a lot of different things that are perpetuated to the younger generation of women, and they simply go on to find out the truth on their own. They grow up and go on to discover the truth on their own, and they're like, how come nobody told me? So this is my attempt to at least tell you that there are safe men out there. There are healthy men out there. They are very hard to find, mainly because in order for them to be healthy and safe, they basically have to go against their cult. They have to go against the cult. And they really have to be a man who's comfortable standing on his own 2 feet, who's comfortable being independent, who's comfortable taking the heat from the cult, who really want him to be like them, but he chooses not to be. He chooses to be his own person. That level of independence and autonomy is very rare out of people, period. It's rare out of people, but it's, I think, even more rare out of men, because there's even more pressure from the male cult to join the cult or risk being kicked out. And that is a very real threat for lots of them growing up. You either join this cult or you're going to get beat up on the way to school every day. And I'm being serious, like literally physically accosted every day because you don't want to hang with us. Remember Lunch Bucket? Remember that? That happens all day, every day to men doing it to other men. So what I'm saying is, it's not that the type of man you want isn't out there. They're just rare and hard to find because they have to stand alone. And people who stand alone tend to stay alone. You don't tend to find people who stand alone hanging out in public, out in the group. Anyway, moving on. Again, I'm not trying to teach you to fear all men. I'm trying to teach you that you are the hunted. And when you are the hunted, you have to move and act a little bit differently than you would if you weren't the hunted. Okay? So let's move on to this next story. This is recent. Again, I apologize that they're so graphic this evening, but you need to be scared. You actually need to be frightened. Somebody needs to scare you. I think that's the problem. We haven't done a good enough job scaring you guys. You weren't scared enough. And the women who came before you weren't scared enough to tell you the truth. You know what my mom used to say to me? She never flat out sat down and just gave me a rundown, but she would always say to me, if you choose to get married, if you choose to get married, she would kind of punctuate a sentence with that. We'd be talking about something and then she'd say, blah, 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 if you choose to get married. And she'd leave it at that. She didn't expound. She didn't go any further. And it always struck me, even as a young person, I was like, why would she say that? Why wouldn't I choose to get married? Oh, goodness, the wisdom, the wisdom, the wisdom. But anyway, this is recent. This is very, very sad. An elementary school principal was killed by her husband in a murder-suicide with 2 young children at home. The kids are okay. He did not harm the kids. Remember? Because they want a legacy. Got to remember that. All right. So it said Erica Allen had filed for a temporary restraining order against her husband last July. Okay. So she knew. A small Texas community is mourning the loss of an elementary school principal who was killed Wednesday evening by her husband. Oh, sorry. This was published May 14th. This was just a few days ago, you guys. By her husband, who then turned the gun on himself. The body of Erica Allen, 35, was found outside and 2 houses down the street from the League City home she shared with her husband, Nicholas Allen, 40. A statement from authorities alleges Nicholas, who was also an educator, exited their home, shot his wife, and then returned inside. Neighbors who reportedly witnessed the murder first called police about the violence around 10 p.m. They say that Nicholas also called, telling dispatchers he was the victim of a home invasion. A tactical team responded to the scene, and contact was established with Nicholas. And then they determined that that home invasion call was not true. They finally breached the front door around 1:30 a.m., found him dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The couple's 2 children were home and inside unharmed. And then it says she had filed for a temporary restraining order against her husband in Galveston County last July. She also filed for divorce around that same time. Okay. The most dangerous time for a woman to leave a relationship like this, or excuse me, I'm sorry. The most dangerous time for a woman in a relationship like this is when she tries to leave. Which is why I feel like it's important for me to help you identify the behaviors, the mindsets, and the attitudes that these types of individuals hold so you can prevent the relationship itself. That's what I'm trying to get you to do. No, I'm not trying to get you to be single forever. I want you to have whatever you want. If you want to be in a relationship, that's what I want for you. If you want to be single, that's what I want for you. And all the other different things going on in between. Whatever you want is what I want for you. But what I'm trying to prevent is for those of you who want to be in relationships, getting involved with people who could do this to you. And it's not always easy to tell, but to me, narcissism would be a pretty good precursor. Like anyone displaying narcissistic traits, and I don't know, obviously, the backstory on this principal's, this woman's life, or what went on between them, or what even made her file for divorce and the restraining order. But what I could say is, if there were signs of narcissism, that's a pretty good red flag, early warning sign, in my opinion, because it's the first sign that they disregard you as a person. So anyone who's real comfortable disregarding you as a person is probably comfortable also taking your life eventually, because they already don't regard you. You see what I mean? They already don't think enough of you, or they don't think much of you. So when they don't think much of you, it makes it very easy to do anything to you when they don't think much of you. This is why there's a video that's been lurking in my brain forever called something, I just can't get the title, but basically it's like narcissism and rudeness go hand in hand, or how rudeness is a sign of narcissism, or something like that. The point of that video is, when someone is rude, what they're basically saying is, you are not worthy of even the most basic human respect, like the most basic of human dignities. And here's the way you could think about it. You can still be polite to someone without liking them. So you can still handle someone, I don't want to say delicately, because that implies like you're not being like real. You can still deal with someone in a way that does not disregard their humanity and not like them, if that makes sense. So anyone who's ever had any kind of customer service job has probably become the master of this. Being professional, being kind, being polite, in spite of how you feel about the customer in that moment. You still try to treat them with fairness, dignity. You still try to treat them how you would treat any other customer, even though everything in you wants to cuss them out, say something different in that moment, right? You exercise restraint. So really, when people are not rude, they're exercising a certain restraint, if that makes sense. Maybe not, because that implies that you want to be rude, but you're choosing not to be. Anyway, I'm getting all tangled up in that. That's not the point. The point is, Anyone who easily disregards you is someone who probably eventually probably could take your life because they already don't hold you to the proper esteem of a human being. And that's one of the main issues going on with a lot of the men who do this kind of stuff. They do not believe women are human. Women are women. Men are human. Women are women. That is the mindset. And if you could ever really get a revelation of that, this will all start making sense to you. I want you to meditate on that tonight. And here's the complete sentence. To men like these, men are men. Excuse me. Start over. Erase. To men like these, men are human and women are women. That is your meditation. Men are human and women are women. And then you'll begin to understand. You'll start to understand. It'll start to become more and more clear. And again, this is only men like this, men who do these types of things to their partners. Okay? So let's move on to this last and final story. Thankfully, nobody died in this one, but still, like, California man tried to kill wife with 2 butcher knives at son's football game, officials say. This happened today. This happened this morning. It was published this morning. It was published at 7:19 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It says, a man in California tried to kill his estranged wife with 2 butcher knives at their son's football game, authorities said Tuesday. The attack occurred on Friday when a 40-year-old woman was watching her son practice flag football. There, prosecutors alleged the son's father, Russell Matthew, I guess that's Hughes. I don't know how to pronounce that. Husgies? I'm going to say Hughes. Russell Matthew Hughes, Husges, charged across the field at her, holding 2 large butcher knives. Spectators, including an off-duty Garden Grove police officer and the couple's 9-year-old son, intervened in the attack. It was unclear what led to the attack, but the victim was granted a family court order against her estranged husband a few weeks before the incident, the DA's office said. Hughes, 43, of Anaheim, California, faces several charges including attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, disobeying a domestic relations court order, and child abuse and endangerment. Garden Grove police did not immediately respond to requests for comment, okay? So basically, this man showed up to his 9-year-old's football game with 2 butcher knives and charged at his estranged wife. And the son, the 9-year-old son, and several spectators had to wrestle him off. And much like the other 2 stories, she had just filed for, where did it say it? She had just filed for a protective order. Oh, it's down here, I think. Oh, there was more to the story. I'm sorry. It says no one should be subjected to violence for making the decision to leave a relationship, and no child should have to intervene to stop one parent from attacking another. The act itself is horrific, but to attempt to carry out this kind of violence in front of children and their parents is the stuff of nightmares. If convicted, he could face life in prison. He's currently being held at Orange County Jail on $1 million bail. Okay. I could have sworn I just read that because he got arrested also for disobeying. Here it is. The victim was granted a family court order against her estranged husband a few weeks before the incident. Okay. So that seems to be the catalyst that sets it off, that final boundary. This boundary you shall not cross as per court order. And that seems to be the trigger. Okay. And I'm not saying don't do this. You need to do this. But what I'm saying is what you want to look for prior to it escalating to this point is an individual who struggles with boundaries and boundary issues. Do you try to tell them no in different ways and they push back or push your boundary away or disregard your boundary altogether? Disregard your boundary in its entirety. Is that the type of person that they are? Because if so, and again, in the past, I've used simple examples like, for example, if you say, oh, I don't like seafood, and they're like, yes, you do. Sure, you do. Everyone does. Oh, I'm going to take you to the best seafood restaurant in the world. And I guarantee you by the time we leave, you'll like seafood. And you're like, no, actually, I really kind of don't. And they're like, are you allergic? Because in other words, there's no way you don't like what I like for you unless it's poisonous to you. So it must be poisonous to you. Otherwise, what's wrong with you? You're going to like it though. I'm going to make you. And just can't accept that maybe your taste buds just don't enjoy the flavor. You know what I mean? But it's little things like that. You see what I mean? Little things like when you first start dating and you're like, babe, this is not me, y'all. I'm a night owl. This is just an explanation or an example. Babe, I go to bed at 9 o'clock every night, no matter what. And he's like, what? 9 o'clock? That's early. What are you in high school? And she's like, it works for me. Like I go to bed at 9, I'm up at 6 o'clock on the dot. That's my life. Like, do you want to date someone who wants to be in bed by 9 o'clock every night? And he has options in this moment. See, the non-narcissist might be like, I don't know. Like, I like to stay up kind of late and like, I'm kind of up till 1 or 2 every night. I don't know. Well, let's try it out and see. And if we can make it work, sure, I'd love to date you. But if not, yeah, probably not. I don't want to date someone who goes to bed that early, right? That would be the non-narc because he's honoring her and himself and not trying to force the issue. The narcissist is going to try to make you a night owl. The narcissist will take you out to dinner at 6 and then accidentally get you home by 10 or 10:30. Oops. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. We were just having such a good time. Sorry, I didn't mean to keep you up. That's why you always drive your own car, ladies, so you can leave when you're ready. Okay. But anyway, my point is boundary issues. So it seems to be that the restraining orders are the catalyst and the Kickstarter to them snapping with that final boundary that you shall not cross this. And what I'm saying is not that you shouldn't get restraining orders. Get them if you need them. But what you want to watch for in the early days, in the early stages, is someone who's comfortable pushing your boundaries away, no matter how great or small they are. You see what I mean? Like, it might seem petty to other people, whatever your boundary is, but if it's your boundary, it's your boundary and you have a right to it, as long as it doesn't violate others, you see? So you want to watch for that gentle knocking away of boundaries, that gentle, testing. Another example we've used on the channel before, some people have peanut allergies and peanut sensitivities. So let's say you tell him that in the early stages of dating, when he's like, well, where do you like to go? What do you like to eat? And you say, well, pretty much anything, as long as they don't have like peanut products at the restaurant, I'm allergic. And he, being such a narcissist, is like, oh, come on, nobody's allergic to peanuts. That's silly. That's snowflake stuff, right? Only snowflakes are allergic to peanuts. So the narcissist is going to try to find ways to accidentally and gently expose you to peanuts to see if you're telling the truth. So the narc is going to take you to the Christmas party, his brother's Christmas party, where his brother's wife makes the best peanut butter cookies in the city. Like, people line up to get batches of her peanut butter cookies, but you don't know that. So he takes you to their house for Christmas. You're sitting there, and next thing you know, your throat is closing up and you're like, why can't I breathe? And lo and behold, you come to find out that she's the peanut cookie maker. She's the resident neighborhood peanut cookie maker. And there's peanut dust all in the house, in the air vents, in the kitchen, on the table, it's everywhere. And he knows that, but he wanted to see if you were telling the truth about your peanut allergy. Now you're calling 911 and looking for your EpiPen. Okay. That's what I'm trying to say to you. That's what you're going to want to be looking for. Once you've gotten this deep in, once you're in this deep, I don't want to say this way, but at the same time, I am actually trying to scare you a little bit. Once you're in this deep, it might already be too late. Now, I don't ever want to instill a sense of hopelessness in anybody, okay? Seek out all resources available to you, the ones that you can access. Research what you can. I understand people in these situations don't always have free access to a phone or free access to a computer. I'm not saying don't seek help, because it's always worth a shot. Because think about it like this: the man who would kill you for trying to leave him is probably the man who would kill you one day anyway. Do you see what I mean? So are you any safer for staying with a person who scared you so badly? You got a restraining order on him. And the thinking is, well, if I just stay, he'll never hurt me. But the whole reason you got the restraining order is because he frightened you to such an extent. So what I'm saying is, always try. You have to be smart about it, and you have to be safe about it, and plan your steps very accordingly and be careful. But what I'm also saying is, my primary goal is to prevent women from getting into these situations, because once you're in this deep, it is so hard to get out. As we just saw in 3 different examples, it's hard to escape people who have entitlement issues to this degree. Okay. So let me give a few closing thoughts. I'm not going to do an after show, but when I go through the comments on the playback, if I see a bunch of comments and I see an opportunity for a second conversation, we'll do that. Okay. And we'll figure it out. We'll figure out how to do that. Let me give a few closing thoughts. Okay. My primary goal is to help you understand the drivers behind this behavior. There are major drivers. They are identifiable. They're predictable. You can almost write them down word for word. Like when you're observing them, like having quote unquote debates and things like that, you can almost word for word know exactly what they're going to say. They've been completely programmed, 100%, thoroughly brainwashed. There are YouTube channels that exist for the express purpose, day in and day out, to indoctrinate and program these men. Now, on a kind of a deeper thought, I feel this is really a thought for a deeper PTE, but they're always talking about this depopulation agenda. And what better way to depopulate a society than to get the men to hate the women and to get the women to run away from those psychos? Because if the men truly hate the women, like truly from their heart hate the women, and the women are scared of the men, that's going to produce fewer babies. But that's a thought for another show, different channel. I need you all to understand what drives these behaviors and drives this mindset. The very first thing that drives it all is the sense of entitlement. Entitlement is essentially the thought that you owe me. You owe something to me. You belong to me. And in certain situations, entitlement is appropriate. For example, if you have a job and you work, you are entitled to your paycheck. So much so that if your employer doesn't pay you, you can take them to court and win, because you are entitled to the money that you earned when you worked. If you purchase something, you are entitled to receive it. Like no one would ever tell you, like, let's say you bought a new car online, which happens, and you're going to go pick it up tomorrow. So you buy the car online, you're going to go get it tomorrow. You show up to the lot and you're like, hey, I'm here to get my car. Here's my receipt. And they're like, oh, we're not giving that to you. And you're like, I'm sorry, why not? Oh, we just don't really feel like it. And you're like, well, then give me my money back. And they're like, nah. It's not going to be long before either cops are called on you or them, one or the other, right? Because you're entitled to your purchase. right? So there are times when entitlement is appropriate, but not when it comes to dating relationships, men and women, and people in general. No one is entitled to another person ever. You're really not. I can't think of one circumstance where a person is entitled to another, with maybe the exception of newborns and babies. They're entitled to their parents because without their parents, they would literally die. So I think, yeah, the baby's entitled to be taken care of. I think by their parents. I think the baby's entitled to milk, or formula. I think the baby's entitled to clean diapers and safe environments. Do you get my point? But the difference there is that the baby really has no choice in the matter but to be entitled. My point is, they apply the concept of entitlement to dating and especially marriage relationships and women in general. And the overall mindset driver behind it is, you are a woman, I am a man. It is the natural order for you to serve me and want to serve me and do whatever I tell you to do. I am entitled to your compliance. I am entitled to your time. I am entitled to your body. I am entitled to your interest in me. I am entitled to all of those things because you are a woman and I am a man. Therefore, you owe me. Okay? So that mindset of entitlement is one of the first major drivers of this behavior. Okay? Second, there is a generalized sex obsession and base mindset in general and regarding women in particular. So a lot of them really have addictions. I'm trying not to use the three-letter S word too much because baby Algo doesn't like that. But a lot of them are absolutely 100% addicted to not only sex, but prawn as well. And they take that mindset and cross it over to regular women. So for those of you who've ever dated a guy and you decided you wanted to take it physical with him, and you go home and he puts you in these strange positions, you're like, what are you doing? He's been watching too much prawn, honey. Okay? And he thinks that you like that because in all those little movies that he watches, they like that. So he's trying to apply it to regular people. They don't understand that there's really two different worlds out here. They really have a tough time differentiating between fantasy and reality. And so you want to watch for that, okay? If you don't really see the entitlement come out, if you decide, and if you're an adult, you have every right to do what adults do. I just highly encourage you to protect yourself and be safe. But if you decide you want to be physical with this person, and this person starts doing all this weird, strange stuff and weird requests. Now, listen, unless you're that type of person and you're into it too, like more power to you. But what you're watching for is the addiction aspect and the obsession aspect. What you're watching for is his inability to even say good morning. It's not good morning. It's what do you have on type situation. You see what I'm saying? Like that's where his mind is always, always. Like not sometimes, always. Not on a Friday night after a long week of work and y'all have had a couple of drinks and his mind starts slipping there. Like literally it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and he sends you a picture of something. Watch for that. I'm telling y'all, you might think it's cute. I've never thought it was cute, but you want to pay attention to that because what it's telling you is this is where his mind is always, at all times. All this stuff going on in the world. Stuff is going on in the Middle East. We got gas shortages over here, broken bridges. We got, we're going to talk about this on Friday on the news break. But out in China, one of their skyscrapers started shaking for no reason. There was no earthquake, no wind, no storm, nothing. And the whole building just started shaking. They had to evacuate the whole thing. And I think they said there was like 15,000 people in that building. But anyway, we got skyscrapers shaking out in China for no reason. We got Obama and other military people coming out saying, yeah, this whole UFO thing, yeah, there might be a little something to that. We got them coming out making little mini disclosures and baby disclosures, and all you can think about is what color my underwear are. See, your mind is in the wrong place. You don't know what's going on. You'll get us all killed out here. I'm over here trying to prep, and you over here trying to figure out what position you can put me in. Like, I'm being so serious, you guys. Yeah, very objectifying. You want to watch for that, okay? You really want to watch. I'm telling you, it's a sign. It's a sign, it's a sign, it's a sign. You also want to watch for if you ever happen to tell him no physically and he feels rejected and dejected. Like you've rejected his whole being for saying, no, I don't really feel like doing that tonight. And you have rejected the sum total of his person. This is a person you want to maybe not take it too much further with. Okay. I'm serious. Everything we got going on, we got Texas freezing over, losing power for a week. And you worried about what type of bra I have on? Your mind is not even in the gutter. Like your mind is just simply not even on what's important. We should be talking about strategy. Like, hey, if the grid goes down, you want to come to my place or should I come to yours? Well, I don't know. Which house do you think is safer? Yours might be a little safer because XYZ, but then again, mine might be a little safer because, you know what I mean? Like that's what we should be strategizing about in the middle of the day. You know what I mean? Not, never mind. Let me move on. Okay. The third thing. So first we've covered the entitlement. We've covered the obsession with sex and physicality and the objectification and the 24/7 mind cycle that stays in that energy field. We've covered that. The third thing you want to look for is what I call a tireless thirst and desperation. Okay. It's a thirstiness. You want to look for a man who's okay being single sometimes. He accepts the fact that in this life, he may not necessarily always have somebody to date. It's not a guarantee for anyone. So if he can't focus or be still, unless he's got a woman up underneath him at all times, you probably don't want to be with him because that is a tireless thirst and desperation. It's like it's a hole that you can't fill. And it's a hole that he will fill in your absence. You understand? Meaning if you're not there up under him, that he's going to try to get the chick at work that he's been flirting with to be up under him for the weekend. You go out of town for the weekend, he's just going to fill the slot with whoever is willing to kind of keep him company for some time. That is a tireless, endless thirst and desperation that you can never satisfy. Okay. And these all work together. The entitlement, the obsession with women, really in general, the thirst, the desperation, they all work together. Okay. And it is very hard for men like these. I have to keep clarifying that. Not all men like these. It is very hard for them to contain it. It comes out almost immediately. You got it, Alexis. Alexis did the summary for you guys. You got it. Screenshot that. Okay. And on top of that, it's this very weird complex of, I hate you so much, but I desperately need you. So this is the man who will, this could almost be, really, this could be a fourth. We can add a fourth. They kind of low-key hate women, but they can't be without them. So he cannot help but complain to you, a woman, about everything he dislikes about women in the presence of a woman. It's on his mind 24/7. And the question would be like, well, if women vex you so, then why do you seek them out so much? And why do you always need one up under you if you dislike them that much, you see? But it's almost like someone who's been kicked out of heaven and has spent their whole entire lives wandering the earth, just looking for home, looking for a place to call home. That's what it's like. That's the level of desperation. They've been kicked out of home theoretically, and wander the earth just looking for a new home, basically. You want to avoid that type of spirit, I'm telling you. It's on their mind too much. Again, there's a million other things going on in this world that we should be very concerned about right now. Very concerned about. And the fact that he can spend so much time thinking about like women's nails or women's hair, you know what I mean? Or like the greatest way to punish a woman who dresses and presents herself in a way that you find displeasing is to simply not date her. That's it. You don't have to create a whole YouTube channel behind it. You don't have to devote your life to the type of woman that you don't like. You don't. The type of men that I don't like, I'm not going to detail. I just don't date them. That's it. It's pretty simple, actually. And I'm doing my part in the extermination of what I don't like. Now, will some other woman come along and date what I don't like? Yes, she will. But guess what? At least I'm not contributing to more of what I don't like. It's a simple solution. But these men literally have devoted their lives to the destruction of the woman. And it is so curious and so bizarre and such a strange life cause, such a strange thing to devote your life to. But they do. And you want to watch out for that. Look for who their heroes are and then go do a little Google search to figure out, do they worship the Tommy Sotomayor's, the Kevin Samuels, and the ones of that nature? Things and things of that nature. Do they worship them? Do they agree? Figure out what they agree with. Ask questions. And if you're not allowed to ask questions, you want to run away as fast as you possibly can, because this is going to be a person who is going to be evasive for your entire relationship. All you're ever going to get is evasiveness, okay? And you cannot build a relationship on evasiveness. It doesn't work. Many people have tried, and now they are 20 years in going, man, if I had just broken up with him the first time, he wouldn't answer my questions. We wouldn't be 20 years and 2 kids in. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and round this out. Again, I am not going to do an after show. I'm just going to read the comments afterward and then see if there's something for us to pull out, and we'll talk about it. Really, I had a perfect run, perfect show, perfect cut, and my freaking alarm goes off. I just can't have a clean run. It's okay though. It's all good. It is all good. That's not the worst that's ever happened. So let's go ahead and round this out. My goal is not to teach women to fear men. My goal is to teach you to understand what you are surrounded by and where you really are. It's easy to keep your head in the clouds and pretend that if you're just a perfect woman and if you just present as a perfect woman, you will attract a perfect man. If you just do everything right, how you're supposed to as a woman, you won't attract the type of men that I'm talking about tonight. And I'm trying to tell you, it doesn't matter what type of bunny rabbit you are, you're still a bunny rabbit and therefore still hunted. And you must understand that. And you must be able to tell the difference between a man who has been impacted by this culture deeply and a man who has been able to separate himself from it. You have to be able to tell the difference. They exist, they are rare, and they are hard to find because they stand alone, and people who stand alone tend to be alone. So they're hard to find. But also though, especially if you're young, like if you're under the age, I would say, of 25, listening to this, I really want you to ask yourself, if dating is the most important thing right now, and if so, why? And if it's the belief that you have to do it before a certain age because you don't want to get too old, and listen, honey, I'm telling you, you will be young for a very long time. 21 is not old, 22 is not old, 25 is not old, 30 is not old. Okay? Really, 35 is not old. And some would argue 40 is not old. Okay? Because trust me, there are so many women sitting at home right now in relationships and marriages who are 38, 39, 40, who are understanding today how very young they still are, who look back when they were 21 and 22, thinking forward to 38, 39, 40, like, man, that's old. And it's not until you get there that you realize, ooh, it ain't that old. Mm-mm. Only old is old. Okay. And when you realize that you may have attached yourself to someone who has taken away a lot of your youthful energy, that's when you start to realize the mistake that you made. So again, I'm not trying to convince you not to get married ever or be in a relationship. I think when relationships are healthy, they are the most beautiful thing on planet Earth, but they have to be healthy. And you cannot build a relationship on entitlement, obsession, tireless thirst and desperation, low grade hatred for the gender that you are. You maintain a low level hatred for me at all times. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't like that. And you hate me for who I am and something that I absolutely cannot change. You know what I mean? You don't hate my hair color this week because I changed it again on you. And you're like, babe, I hate the yellow. And I'm like, well, I'll change it next week to green or something. It's not hair color that you hate. You hate what I actually am. And you've assigned all these attributes, some of which are true, but the majority of which are not. They're exaggerations and lies that just keep getting circulated in barbershops and locker rooms and chat rooms, circulated as truth. For example, one of their favorite lies is that women are the emotional creatures. But you know what I call emotional? I call emotional killing your wife because she wanted to divorce you because you were hurting one of her children. I call emotional killing your wife because she filed for divorce and a restraining order on you. And I call emotional showing up to your son's football game with two butcher knives and charging at your wife trying to kill her. I call that emotional. To me, that's pretty emotional. To me, these are three examples of three men who have totally lost control of their emotions. But you know what they'll turn around and say? Well, they must have been raised by women. Okay. All right. So again, what you're looking for are individuals who display that thought process, that logic, that mindset. That's what you're looking for because it turns into this. It morphs into this mainly because it has nowhere to go. I really believe the brain must have logic. The brain, whether or not you want to be logical, the brain is going to try to force you into logic. And when you keep trying to override logic, it ends up in violence. It converts to violence because it has nowhere else to go. The brain keeps trying to bring it back to logic. They keep overriding it. And eventually it just explodes out into this energy because it's a confused, wild energy that has nowhere else to go. So, the chat says, could it be that they do not truly know themselves within their identity? Oh, yes. And that could be a completely separate show all by itself. Has a lot to do with the fact that many people believe lies and they believe at 19 and 20 and 21, you're old and that you need to go ahead and start your family. And listen, if you get lucky and meet the love of your life at 19, 20, 21, and y'all get together and stay together forever and start your little family. I mean, we all love those love stories. We love those stories. Those are great. Love it when it happens, but it doesn't happen that way for most people. And I think so many young people and people, period, spend an inordinate amount of time trying to put themselves in a relationship. And it's like, what exactly are you trying to obtain from that relationship? They'll say companionship, security, obviously physicality, someone to love and talk to and all this, that, and the other. And that is all beautiful. But you must understand that you are an individual creature. Like you are, with the exception of twin births and multiple births, you were born alone. You were created alone. You are a solo creature. So you have to learn how to love yourself and be okay with yourself, because yourself is really the only thing that's guaranteed. Really. Like, you are the only thing that is guaranteed for yourself until your final day. So because that is true and the only thing that is true, you have to find a way to develop a stronger relationship with yourself. You can't keep looking outside of yourself to fulfill that void, that loneliness, all of that. You have to find a way to be fulfilled within. Otherwise, these relationships will keep caving in. Absolutely. So with that, you guys, that's all I really wanted to say. I thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed the show. I didn't see many trolls after the start of the show, so I think a lot of heads got chopped off. I'm not sure. Takes me back to a time that I had to step out the room for a second. I came back and my mods had killed literally everybody. So I don't know what happened here, but I will be watching it on the playback. I appreciate all of you so much. I hope I've given you food for thought. To my male listeners, you know how I feel about you. You know I love you. You know I'm not saying all men, but a good subset of the brethren are not well. And even if you're not one of them, the chances of your sister, your mother, your aunt, your cousin, your niece, your friend being impacted by one of these men is very high. So that's why it's important for you to know about this too. Even if you're not this type of person, you need to know it's out there so you can be talking to the women in your life and coaching them so they know what to be on the lookout for as well. Okay. And with that, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and close out the show. Look for this episode on the podcast within 24 to 48 hours of this show ending. Okay. And with that, take care. I'll talk to you guys again very soon.